Ademola Oshodi is a policy analyst. He joins us next as we focus on issues ahead of the 2015 general elections. Morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
Well, I haven't seen the way the campaigns are going, the kinds of issues that are raised, not forgetting INEC as well. I mean, you have some things to do with INEC as well, but perhaps we should start with them, the commission. About the distribution of the permanent voter cards. Earlier today, we talked about internally displaced persons voting. They've got a lot on their plate, do you think?
They do. This is definitely one of the most challenging times for INEC. I've been studying INEC. I've been in the office several times, and I've studied the history of electoral bodies in Nigeria all the way from the 1979 election. But you need to give INEC a benefit of the doubt at this stage. The last election, the 2011 election, was judged as probably the best in recent times in Nigerian history. This one has been a little bit more challenging in the beginning, just as it was in 2011 in the preparations. But we also had our fears 4 years ago when, for instance, I think April 2nd, 2011, an election was cancelled while everybody was outside lining up. And everybody was a little bit apprehensive and said, do these people know how to conduct elections? And it turned out to be a very good election. It turned out to be one of the best in Nigeria. So I think fine. This PVC is a big issue, is a big challenging, and it's probably the most important part, apart from the election day itself. It's very important to get that out. I know INEC is out on the field right now, trying to get it out to people. So,
in your study. Perhaps you tell us what else sticks out, because logistics is a big challenge.
It is.
Because now you're going to add to that the IDPs.
Yep.
Of course, after they've done that AFIS, the figure of registered voters has reduced.
Absolutely.
But then you still have, I think, almost half of the eligible voters have not picked up their PVCs.
Yes.
How do you see the logistics issue being handled this time?
It is pretty daunting. I think the issue of the permanent voters card has been on for a while. I think INEC at this stage should have had things in place, but some of them will tell me privately that the issue of funding from the federal government came in very late, and I personally think it's they underestimated the challenges of Nigeria, a very complex system we have here. But you would probably see the fact that regardless of how many people actually pick up that PVC, there'll be a less amount of people that will come out and vote on election day. It always happens like that, But as time goes on, I think as the elections, we have to see maybe by-elections or whatever. There'll be more awareness, more of the issue of this PVC will be resolved. But basically what we need to realize right now is the fact that there's a huge amount of awareness, especially with this PVC, and with all this publicity, with the media, and even the politicians, you'll probably see a huge rise in people picking it up shortly before the election. It always happens. It's the Nigerian way. It's always last minute.
Part of those who will also be involved in that process happen to be the ad hoc staff.
Yes.
I'm not sure the amount of their figure now. I think I saw some figure about 12,000 that INEC has ad hoc staff. But 12,000 is still not enough, grossly not enough.
Oh, of course, of course. What the NYC corporates are a big part of this ad hoc staff. There's a lot of people coming in, from teachers and stuff like that. Schools being used, part of that ad hoc system, basically. What to say? It's not enough if you look at it in where contentious places, where there's going to be a lot of tension, like very competitive states, like for instance maybe Kaduna or maybe in Oyo State, or even River State. You can't have enough people there. It's just because it's such a competitive area. So what you'll probably find is maybe a more concentration of people, in those places. I know a lot of international foreign observers are going to be monitoring those contentious states where it's either going to be one way or the other. While places like, I don't know, I don't want to predict elections here, but places whereby it seems obvious that a certain party will win, there's less concentration, less ad hoc staff, less monitors. So it's usually those very competitive areas that you find those 12,000 people concentrated at the moment.
Let me even deviate a little bit. Perhaps we'll then come back to this other issue. It has to do with the election observers.
Yes.
Perhaps the foreign election observers now, because time and again when elections are conducted and concluded, they come up with certain briefings, and it looks as though that's what the international community latches on to take their decisions.
Yep.
Do we have to rely on that, or how seriously or otherwise should we take it?
Well, it's a necessary part of any emerging democracy like Nigeria. We need it viewed and validated. For instance, if the Commonwealth
validated.
Well, if they come out and say the election was free and fair, and the opposition person or somebody else that loses says it's not, it just
we've got the court here.
Yeah. Well, it's just another. It's an add-on. It's another level of accountability or validation, so to speak. So, if for instance, if the Commonwealth says, "Oh, the election was generally free and fair," it represented the views of the electorate. The opposition, the person that loses, has less of a stand to say, "Well, that election was not free and fair. It wasn't." So that's the importance of electoral observers, and also to see how we progress and how things have been since the last election, and once people see it. It's good to have this documented, to have external people that actually are supposed to be objective grade it and say, well, what, this country is actually improving toward the path of democracy.
When are they likely to start? Is it during elections or even weeks before elections? As we talk about the PVC
Yes.
In Broglie now in some states, shouldn't we also have some observers observing,
Yes.
trying to monitor how INEC is moving and how the electorates are also taking in some of these advice or comments?
Yes. A lot of them are on ground. I know that INEC has a lot of support from a lot of foreign organizations funding education awareness, funding certain areas, training, etc. So they are on ground in that regard. Obviously, for them to be actually on the field, it has to be on election day and post-election day, especially. But you would find that I think we have over maybe 14 so far, or maybe more registered election observers. A lot of them are countries, say Switzerland, the United States. You also have, the African Union that would show up. You would have people like the Carter Center, very critical about elections in Nigeria. So you have this vast array of people. Apart from that, you have the indigenous observing team. You have the TMG that's always on ground. So it's a wide array of people, of experts, professionals, and supposed to be objective people that would assess our election and see how things are. And apart from the fact of being on the election day, they will actually send in money using their expertise to help us get prepared for this election.